We're going to do a brief introduction of Git and GitHub in this section. First things first, you're going to need a couple of things to get started. You'll need Git and you will need a GitHub account. So we'll walk you through setting up Git on your machine in the next lesson. But for right now, go ahead and go to github.com. You need to create an account for GitHub, and basically it's pretty easy. Just username, email, and password, and then sign up for GitHub. It's completely free. One thing about your username is that make sure that it's something professional, because whatever that is what's going to be displayed at the end of your URL. So if you're sharing your path with somebody, it's going to be like /glitch IT system. So here's my GitHub account, github.com/glitch in the system JM. So make it professional. Don't use something silly like Love Puppy 69 or something like that. Make it professional because other people will see it, because the whole point of your GitHub account is not only to store your version controlled code in the server, but also for you to be able to share your projects with other people, because that's how you show future employers that you know how to do stuff, by showing them what projects that you've worked on the side. Alright, so I kind of explained what GitHub is. So GitHub is a place for you to store your version controlled code on the server, and for you to share it with other people. And what Git is the version control system, so it allows you to keep track of changes and revert changes and do branching, merging, all those sorts of things, all the things that version control does. We're going to start up this section by briefly going over how to install Git onto your machine and get it up and running. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to start with the Windows version of this lesson. We're going to go to git-sem.com/download, and then you should see a window similar to this. Go ahead and just click that Windows button, and then you will get a download link that will download in a few seconds. I guess before we even do that, let me pull up a command window. If you type in Git here, and if you see this return back, then that means you already have Git installed and you can skip this step. So both Windows or Mac, if you have Git already installed, you open a terminal or a command prompt window, type in Git, hit enter. If you get this help documentation, then you already have Git installed, so you can go ahead and skip this particular lesson. Alright, so back to this. So this finished downloading. Just go ahead and open this up, and it's just going to give you a pretty simple wizard here. Just take the defaults. Visual Studio as code editor, yes, and Git command line, so that's all fine. Next, yep, all good, all good, all good, sure. Keep on hitting next and next, and install. So the only thing that you might want to change is the path where the Git files are actually installed. That was towards the beginning of this installation wizard, but I'm just going to leave it as is. Since I already have it installed, I'm not going to hit that install button, but go ahead and hit it if you're on Windows and you don't have Git, and come back to this when you are ready. Okay, so if you're on Mac, there's a super easy way to get Git. So you could go to the Git installer thing over there, but you can just use brew. So if you go to brew.sh, so remember this is for Mac, so brew.sh, and then just copy this whole thing right there. If you copy it and you throw it into your terminal, this is Windows, so this is not going to work, but basically what you would do is copy this, throw it into here, and hit enter, and then it would install brew onto your system. Alright, and then once you do that, all you have to do is make another command to install Git, and that command is brew install Git. Alright, So once that is done, then you have Git installed, and like I said earlier, just type in Git and then you should see this command now after that is all done. Okay, alright, so installation is done. Windows and Mac are both done. So I showed you how to do it on Windows, I showed you how to do it on Mac. You should be at an equal playing ground where you can come into the terminal and type Git and get this command, and you're good to go. So we need to do some configuration first. So I'm actually going to close this one. So on Windows, you should have an application called Git Bash that was installed. And it looks like this. And what we're going to do is git config -- global user.name. And then inside of here, you're going to put in the name that you want to appear on your commits. So I'm going to put my name, but for you, you're going to put in your name or whatever name you want to show up when you're making commits. All right, and then we're going to do the same thing for email. So email, and then this is going to be your email. So that's not a real email, so don't try to send me stuff to it. But basically, change your email to be whatever your email you want to be associated with your commits. All right. Hit enter after both of those commands, obviously, to apply it, and you are good to go for that. All right. And then one last thing we're going to be doing is that we're going to be using SSH to download stuff from repositories. And to push to our repository. So looking at my repository here, let me just open up like vending machine here. So you can see there's this clone or download, and then you can see that clone with SSH is by default. There's also HTTPS, but we're going to use SSH. So what that allows us to do is that allows us from your computer. So it's very important that you're using your computer that you can do this on. Don't do this on like a public computer somewhere or somebody else's computer, because then they will be able to access your repositories easily, and they can delete stuff, they can make changes because they have access. So do this on your own computer. Alright, so I'm gonna put this link in the next lesson. So I actually have a text version of this lesson that we're going through right now, so both for Windows and Mac, and I have this link in here on how to set up the SSH. So you can grab it from the next lesson, or you can type all that in, but it's kind of long, so I'll just grab it from the next lesson. And if you're on Windows, make sure this Windows is selected here. If you're on Mac, make sure the Mac is selected. But what you're basically going to do is you're going to go through these steps here. So open Git Bash, which I showed you, and then you're going to do copy this. So don't copy that $, just copy this, and then paste it into Git Bash. All right, hit enter, and then that'll do something. And then basically it's going to ask you some questions. Just keep on hitting that enter key until it's done, and then you're good. All right. Then you need to come down here, add your SSH key to the SSH agent. There's a lot of words here, but basically what you need to do is you need to copy this, paste it into this Git Bash, and hit enter, and it will do something. All right. And then copy this command, paste it into Git Bash, and then it'll do something. All right. So now you have your SSH key ready to be used for your Git account. And then you go to this link at the bottom that says adding your new SSH key to your GitHub account. So here's this first step. Put this command in the command prompt. So that will copy it to the clipboard. You go to settings, click on SSH keys and GPG keys. Click that new SSH key button there, and then you're going to paste in whatever's in your clipboard. So just right click on there and hit paste, and then it's going to give you this long string of random stuff, and then you're going to hit the add SSH key thing. So don't share this key with anybody also, because that'll give them access to your stuff. So that's why I'm not showing you how to do this on my machine, because I don't want you to have access to my stuff. But then that's pretty good. So And then you might get prompted for a password. Put your GitHub password in there and confirm. If you're already logged in, you probably won't, but you're probably okay. All right, so that is it. Feel free to go through the text version, which is following this video, to enable and set up your Git and GitHub accounts so that they can you can push and pull from your own repository. Let's go ahead and create a brand new repository. So on your GitHub account, just click on this like icon on the left. It's like a cat or something, just to get on your like dashboard screen. As long as the interface is about the same, you should see something like this, list of my repositories. If this is the first time using GitHub, you're not going to have any, obviously, but there should be a new button somewhere up here. So we're going to do new. And then this is going to be our repository. So we're going to do test_app. All right, and then you can put a description in here. So this is the name of the repository, test app, and then the description you can write whatever you want. This is just a demo of using Git. All right, and we're not going to check any of these other things. We'll just leave them as default. Leave this as public, which is fine, and go ahead and hit create. So once you've created this, it will give you this kind of starter documentation. So you can see in the URL that we're at github.com/ the name of my account. And then the / the name of my repository. So that's why I said use a name that you want people to see, because this is what's going to show up in the URL that you're giving them, that you're sharing around there. All right, so make sure this says SSH here. So we want that. And what we're going to do is basically we're just going to copy what it tells us to do here. I'm going to go ahead and open up VS Code here. So I just created a folder somewhere called test app. And then let me bring this over here. So I'm going to view terminal and just clear the screen there. All right. So I'm going to create a file. So they said do this echo thing, but I'm just going to create it manually. So I'm just going to do readme all caps .md. Okay, and then I'm going to put something in here. So this hash key is going to be a heading. So one hash is like a h1 heading. So I'm going to do demo git app. Okay, and then underneath it would be the text that you are using. This is just for testing out Git. All right, and save that. Okay, and you can see it formatted a little bit. So I have to do something. So I need to do git init. So this will initialize this directory as a GitHub repository. And you can see that this changed color and that this link over here, which is source control, lit up. So now you can see that Git, see source control Git, this is Git in VS Code tracking your changes. So it can say, it says untracked. So it knows that this file is in the folder, but you're not tracking it. So you're tracking means that you're not using the source control to track it. It's just there, and if you make changes to it, it's not going to be able to capture those because you're not tracking it. Another way to kind of see that is if you do in the command line, do git space status, you can see untracked files is readme. All right. So, and it's in red, if you can see red. All right. Okay, so we've done that. So we've initialized it. We've added a readme. And just kind of let you know, there's a hidden folder in here that you can't see on this editor. There's like a .git folder. Let me see if I can bring it up in my window here so that I can show it to you. So there you go. So you can see there's a .git folder. It's a hidden folder, so you're not going to see it there. But this is what Git is using to know that this is a Git folder, and kind of keeps all the log files and stuff in there. So if you ever wanted to not make this a Git folder anymore, you can just delete that folder, and then it would forget everything that you've ever done. But be careful of doing that, because you're going to lose all of your changes and everything if you haven't pushed it up to source control. All right. So where were we? So let's do this git add. So this git add, so remember that git status said this is an untracked file. Let's do git add and then readme, and then let's do this git status one more time. And now you can see changes to be committed, new file readme. So now that is no longer an unstaged file or untracked file. See, untracked file, now it's changes to be committed. So now it is ready to be committed. It's just on your computer. It's being tracked now. It has not been committed. So we need to commit this. So git commit -m. So -m means you're adding a message, which is pretty much, you should always be adding your messages to your commit. So we'll just call this first commit added a readme. All right, and then you can go ahead and hit save, and then let's do git status one more time. So it says on branch master, nothing to commit, working tree clean. So you see that those files are no longer showing there. So when you commit it, it means that it's like ready to be pushed up to the source control, so GitHub, but it's also in a state where like we've captured all of your changes up to this point. So it knows from the last time you did a commit that these are the new changes. So if you made changes to that readme file and added something else there, let's add another period just for fun, and then do git status. So now there is a new change here. So on our commit, we have our last change. So if I was to grab the last commit, I would get the version that only had one period. But right now, my working directory has 2 periods, and those haven't been committed yet. So I would have to change that I would have to commit that to have another checkpoint there, basically. So. Alright, so I just deleted that dot, so it knows that there's no difference between the current version and the previous committed code, so it's not saying that it's modified anymore. So you can kind of clean it up that way. Okay, alright, so now it's time to do this. So we need to add the destination of where we want this to go. So that's what that line does. It adds a remote origin. And then all you have to do is git push -u origin master. Okay, so this is going to push that code and the information about that commit to here. So if I refresh, now you can see that that tutorial information is gone, and you can see that the readme, which is in GitHub, is displayed by default in the directory, is showing there. So we've done our very first commit, and we've done our very first push, and we've done our very first add. So let's, oops, no, not there. Let's clear my screen here. Let's add some more files here. So I'll just call this test.js, and then I'll call this test.html, and then, come on, escape. Don't save. There you go. Okay, and then I'll add a test.css. So these files don't have anything in them, but it doesn't really matter. They're just there for testing. So if you look at VS Code, it sees that there are 3 changes. There are 3 updated files. You don't see the ones that are already in source control. You just see these ones up here. And you can actually do the commits from here if you wanted to. You can see the differences between old and new. So old basically didn't exist, and new is there. So that's a handy feature of VS Code with the Git integration. But let's do this manually. So let's do git status so we can see what's there. So remember how we did git space add space readme? So we were telling it to add a specific file. But what if I want to just add everything? So I can do git space add space dot and hit enter. And then let's go and do git status one more time. So now you can see that all 3 files were added. So everything in the current directory is going to be added to your your source control when you do that. Or you can just do file by file if you want to just add particular files. All right, so we did an add. Let's do a commit, git commit -m, and then let's say added some files. And then we can just do git push origin master. Okay, and then if you refresh here, there we go. So you can see those 3 files are there, and you can see that the commit message is on each of those files. So every time that the commit is made on that particular file, whatever message went with that commit is going to get updated. So if I made an update to this, then this message would change to whatever the new message is on the commit. All right, I'm going to give you a very super quick overview of branching and merging. Branching and merging can be one of those subjects that's kind of confusing and hard to understand. I've included a link to this kind of tutorial here from Atlassian on Git Branch. It's attached to this lesson, so go ahead and take a look at that if you're still confused at the end of this. But kind of think of branching as, I'm not sure if you guys have all seen like those Avengers movies where it's that timeline where it's like we have a single timeline and then you can branch off into different timelines and different things happen in those timelines. That's kind of what branching looks like, as you can see with here. So we have master here. So if you look at your repository that we created, our branch that we have right now is master. So master is basically the main branch. This is like the starting branch for your Git. So we have master, we've committed code, so all of these circles here are code commits that we've pushed up to master. All right, but take a look at this. So there's a little feature here. So this little feature is a branch. So they have the initial commit, and then they're like, oh, we need to have a little feature. So they've made a little feature branch up here. So now it's running in parallel, and you can kind of see that with big feature also. It's running in parallel with the master branch. So people can still be committing and pushing up to master. So let's say I added like 3 files last time, right? So let's say I added another file here. So this file exists on master, but it doesn't exist on little feature, and vice versa. I can add another file on little feature, so it exists here, but it doesn't exist in master. So that's where merging comes in. So merging is when you want to take what you have on your branch and basically shove it into the other branch. So that way that everything that is on your divergent branch is now all within the same branch. So this is branching, and merging is putting everything kind of back together. All right, so the one part I'm not going to kind of go over because we shouldn't be hitting that in our course is merge conflicts. You can kind of learn more about that here. Merge conflicts. It's basically when, let's say, somebody was editing the README in master, and somebody was editing the same README in this little feature branch, and basically Git doesn't know how to resolve the differences because you edited like the same lines of code, you edited the same file, and when you try to merge it, it has a conflict because it doesn't know whose changes should be applied. It doesn't know if the little feature changes are more important or the master changes are more important. So you would have to go through and basically remove out the parts that are no longer important, and then confirm that that's what you want to merge together. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into our test app repository. I'm just going to create a new branch here. So let's call this test branch, test_branch. Okay, so now you can see that, and it automatically takes you to that branch. So now you can see that we have 2 branches. We have master and we have test branch. So when I switch between the two, you can see that things are different. So let me go back to test branch, and I'm going to actually update this README. So if you click on it, hit this edit over here, and I'm just going to say edit in test branch. Okay, so I add some text here, and then I'm going to commit this. So update, updated, readme, and then commit changes. So now you can see that, let's go back here. So go back to the test app. So I'm still on test branch, and then you can see in the readme that it says edit in test branch. But if I switch back over to master, master does not have these changes. So master just has this right here. It just has demo get app, and it doesn't have the new changes. So what we have here are two different branches, two different changes, and you can kind of see what's going on here. Okay, so in the previous lesson we created this extra branch here, and we edited the readme. So how do we get that into our actual project though? So because we did this all in GitHub, so let's do git status, and it says that we're on branch master, right? Okay, so how do we get from branch master to test branch? So let's do git branch, git space branch, and you can see that we only see master. So we're only seeing master because git branch does the list of local branches, so whatever branches that you have pulled onto your machine. So let's do git branch a, branch dash a. So now you can see that we have master here, which is green, and then we have this remotes origin master, right? So still not quite what we're looking for, because we're looking for this test branch. So what we're going to do is git fetch. So basically fetch is going to get us a list of things that we don't know about. So let's clear screen. So git branch minus a. So now you can see that not only is there master here, but we also have a test branch, which is the one that we're looking for. Okay, so that's what git fetch does. It grabs the stuff, but it doesn't actually, it grabs like the labels and everything. It knows what things are changed. It knows when there's like new branches, but it doesn't actually pull the code. If you wanted to actually pull the code, then you would do a git pull, but we'll do that in a second here. So let's first grab this branch. So I want to change branches. So I'm going to do git checkout, and then it's going to be test underscore branch. And then now it says switch to a new test branch. So if we go into this readme, you can see that it says edit in test branch. So we are now in that other branch. And if I wanted to change back, then I just go git checkout master, and then you can see that we are now in the master branch, because you can see that the readme file is different. Okay, so let me clear this out. I'm going to go back to that git checkout test underscore branch. Okay, and then I'm going to make another change here. Let's see. I'm going to edit this. Edit. Again with the edit. It doesn't really matter what you type, just type something. All right, and then I'm going to check this in. Updated. Readme. Again. Commit. Okay, so let's do a git status. So git status. So it says your branch is up to date with origin, but we kind of know that's not true because of this. Let's do a git fetch. And then CLS, and then let's do a git status again. And now it says your branch is behind test branch by 1 commit. So remember, the fetch gets you all the list of changes, so it knows that there's a change on this repository. So what we're going to do is git pull, which is going to actually pull in all those changes, and you can see that the README file had some changes there, and you can see that it shows up there. Okay? Alright, so that's basically fetching, pulling, and checking out. So remember, fetching is you grabbing like the information about the changes, so new or removed branches, new updates based on commits, and then pulling is going to actually pull all the code from that change. So if you're in a branch that has a change that you haven't got yet, then pull is going to pull all of those changes in. Pull will do the same thing as fetch also. So it's going to get it's going to know that there's changes and then pull the changes. And then checkout is how you switch between. And notice that the first time that I did checkout on this test branch, that I didn't have to do pull also. That's because when you do it for the first time, it does that pull also. Okay, so sometimes you have files and folders that you don't want to include into your Git push. So for example, this would be like files that are like you only want them on your local like security files maybe, or your node modules folder, because we don't want to actually push all the node modules up there. We want people to do the npm install and actually push those node modules up there. So there's a way to not use those files and just kind of ignore them. So it's actually called git ignore. So what we're going to do is let's just do a git status. So it doesn't matter what branch you're on, just choose one. I'm on the git, where am I? I'm on the test branch here. So test branch. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder here. Actually, I'll create a new file first. So blah.js, right? Okay, so there's a couple ways I can do this. I can manually come in and create a git ignore file, or since we're using VS Code, I can use a shortcut, which is use Control-Shift-P or Command-Shift-P, and then type in ignore, and then you should see one that says add to .gitignore. So this actually created a file called the .gitignore file, and it added this blah.js. So right now, if I do a git status, you can see that git ignore was added to the list of untracked files, but you don't see this blah.js. So let me delete this out, and then let's do git status one more time. So now you do see that blah.js. Okay, so you can see that this git ignore file is working. Oops, blah.js. It is working. Okay, one thing to notice though, that you can't ignore stuff that you've already committed and checked in, so you would have to do some extra work to get those to be no longer tracked, because it just wouldn't do anything. It doesn't make sense to try to ignore something that you're already tracking. So you need to make sure you do this before you commit the files. Alright, so let's do another one. Let's do a folder. So I'm just going to call this node_modules because that's pretty common. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add /node_modules and save and clear screen. You can get status, and you can see node modules is not added. Let's add a file in there. Let's say bleh.js. Call it whatever you want, and then get status one more time. You can see that the file inside of that node modules folder is also not being tracked or being looked at. So this is what you want to do. You need to make sure you do this, especially if you have like node modules folders, because we do not want to ever push up node modules folders up, because you're going to be pushing up the package.json file, which is what the person who's using your code is going to use, and then they're just going to do the npm install to generate their own node modules file. But you do want to push up this git ignore file, because that's that way when somebody else is using your code that they don't actually push up their node modules folder. So one final lesson that we're going to do in this Git tutorial is a fork. So a fork is pretty much kind of like a branch, but this time you're forking from somebody else's repository. So you're going to somebody else's repository, you're clicking the fork button, and then it's making a copy of it over onto your own repository. So you're no longer in like kind of like a horizontal kind of display like we had before, where we had the branches kind of like hovering over each other, and then they could just go in and out, merge in and out. You're actually in your own repository, and if you ever wanted to push back into that owner's repository, you'd have to do a pull request and get their permission, and they may want to accept your changes, which can happen, or not. They could just ignore you. But yeah, so let's go ahead and do a fork. So I'm just kind of like on the home page of my GitHub account, just so that you can see what repositories I have there. I already have a forked one from my other repository. You can see that by this little Y, looks like the thing from Back to the Future that they had in the car. But I'm going to go to todomvc.com, and then I'm going to click on this View on GitHub link. And then you can see that over here there's a fork, and then you can see that there's like 13.6 thousand people have forked this repository. So I'm gonna be another one of those. So basically when I click this, it says fork your own copy of taste.js/todo-mvc to your account. So when I click that, it's going to do some magic, and it says forking. It should take a few seconds, and you can see that you are now in your account. So if I go here and refresh, and now you can see that I have a copy of todo-mvc in my repository now. So I can do stuff with it. This is my copy of it in the repository. I can pull it down to my computer, do work on it, create branches off of it, do whatever I want with it, and kind of go with that. So that's basically what forking is. We're going to be doing this, well, you guys will be doing this with some of these test projects possibly in the future, or you can do that with any open public project out there on GitHub.